and Democracy. And Mbak Kartika had worked with institutions such as the National Commission on Violence Against Women or Komnas Perempuan, the Center of Study of Religion and Democracy, and the Institute for Policy Analysis of Conflict. Okay, without any further ado, I am impatient. I also excited. So we are eager to learn from the insight of this critical issue. Please join me in welcoming Mbak Tia Ayu Kartika.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for being patient for like 30 minutes from the supposed schedule, and thank you for the kind introduction as well. I am even scared to listen to your the introduction because I don't think that I am that great. But okay, so maybe one thing that I haven't been really introduced is actually I'm a currently PhD candidate at ANU, working completely different topic than this. So this is an article that I published, that I and Pak Isan published from Pusat Paramadina published early this year. We've done this research, I think since 2018, and ended our data collection in 2022. So because this topic will rely a lot from the dynamics and all this politics in Bima, West Nusa Tenggara. It will be, maybe some of you who knows Bima will see it a different way, and we can discuss that later because this ends in 2022. So, what happened? Yeah. Oh, gitu.
Sudah diganti kok.
Cek.
Yeah.
It will go smoother than now. Okay.
Hilang lagi tuh.
Oh, so I'm not sure how to do this.
Apa? Tadi kendor apa ya? Kendor.
Maybe.
Ininya. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Well, okay, so this is actually the article, and this is part of a special issue on radical and militant Islamism in Indonesia. There are a lot more titles that may be of your interest, and other with other authors that maybe you can also check this out after this. So let me start with the map of Indonesia and to locate where Bima is. Any of you know where Bima is? Oh, okay. One of you knows, but majority are not, right? Okay, so this is Indonesia, of course, and Bima is actually located in West Nusa Tenggara. Okay, and this is like a very tiny city and region here in those areas. So located quite far from Lombok and from other places as well. And Bima, the city of Bima is actually only this small. And the region is like the entire one. But my locus of research is actually around the Bima city and kind of touch a little bit on the region as well. And so why we focus on Bima? It starts with what happened in 2016. So Bima was among the list of the golden triangle of radicalization and extremism, according to BNPT, the Indonesia's anti-terrorism bodies. And it is quite surprising for us because Bima is not the center for radicalization like Solo, for example, or it also does not have a history of conflict like Poso. So the golden triangle is actually Solo, Poso, and Bima. They call it Gojo, so to make it a bit more, the rhyme with the golden triangle. But when we look at it a little bit closer, there's actually a long list of involvement of Bima men and women in contemporary terrorist activities. We see a lot of police attacks and killings, cases of military training and explosive making, support for Poso jihadis, the one in MIT, the Eastern Mujahidin Indonesia. And we also see some Bima men also flew to Syria, and even two of the first Indonesian military trained females are from Bima, so they're the wives of MIT jihadis. And I quoted this from IPAC that Bima had all the ingredients for an extremist stronghold, a long history of extremist activity, a critical mass of prisoners, blah, 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 charismatic preachers, school and mosque, blah, blah, blah. So they all have these ingredients, but no one actually looked at what happened in Bima. So that's why we want to look a little bit deeper on that. And this is our main research question. So how and why has the interaction between Bima's radical milieu with the local extremism escalated and or de-escalated violent extremism? And the second one is, what are the incentives involved in those interactions which could be useful for strengthening peace building in the future? Okay, so because this is an academic forum, so I want to first approach it with the theoretical framework, which is the radical milieu. And the reason we use this theory is because a lot of study on radicalization focuses more on the psychological factor, for example, like the staircase of radicalization. Any of you know about the Mogadam theory or Kruglanski theory with the case of for significance. So they're focusing more on either on the psychological factors or on the sociological factors. What we want to look at this study or in this research is actually the relational perspective. We want to look at how these terrorist groups interact with other groups outside them and the broader social political environment within in which they belong to. So this is the interaction and also to reveal the complex and ambivalent relationship between the terrorist groups and the wider social environment. And this is to some extent also influences the makeup and also tactical choice within the extremist groups themselves. And therefore, what we define, we actually borrow this from Malthanaer and Waldman definition of radical milieu, is the immediate social environment which shares perspective and objective, approves of certain forms of violence, and at least to a certain extent supports the violent group morally and logistically. So if you can see, this is the terrorist group, so they're within the radical milieu, and both of them also within the wider socio-political environment. I hope this helps to understand what radical milieu is. And this is the characteristic of each circle. The first one, the terrorist groups must be agreed on doing violence against the state. So that's the most distinctive feature of terrorist groups because they use violence. And for radical milieu, they're more open structured and sometimes they limit their activities to a militant form. So Malthanaer and Waldman say that if it's like throwing Molotov bombs, it's still considered as militant, not as violent. So violent means, you know, bigger bombs or explosives or taking up guns, things like that. So if it's only Molotov bombing or like what we know of FBI, for example, the Islamic Defender Front doing anti-vice raid, something like that, it's not considered as violent, but it's militant. And also the wider environment, which is sometimes they ambivalent towards attitudes towards violence or openly reject violence and militant forms of protest. So in Bima, we see these three distinct social circles and divided it between these 5 groups. So there are much more smaller groups in Bima, but we just picked 5 of those just to simplify our research, our finding. So the terrorist groups here is the Jamaah Ansar Daulah, which is the pro-ISIS groups here in Bima. So if you know about the pro-ISIS cells outside Bima, they're part of, they're emerged from online radicalization cells, for example, or self-radicalization, or sometimes people call it lone wolf. So in Bima, they're exclusively under jihad or under Jamaah Ansarut Daulah. It's very rare to see people who are pro-ISIS but not affiliated in any way with the JAD. So it's very unique, Bima. And radical milieu, we have FUI, Islamic Community Forum, or Forum Umat Islam. It's very similar with FPI in Jakarta. Yeah, so it helps you to situate it, I think. And just Jamaah Ansarut Syariah. So this is a splinter group from Jamaah Ansarut Tauhid. It also supports caliphacy, but not really supporting violent means of protest. So they're very much non-violent. And the broader groups are NU and Muhammadiyah. I don't think that I need to explain that to you. I hope this illustrates what happened in Bima. So I just want to give you the general context of Bima. So when we visited Bima multiple times, but when we were there, we really looked at, we really see that Bima have a very distinct environment compared to Jakarta, for example. They have a very strong Islamic culture. Maybe because one, they also have a very, they have their own Islamic Sultanate centuries ago. But one of their distinctive characteristic is because they're located in the middle of Bali, the Hindu kingdom in Bali, and also the Christian influence in Eastern Indonesia, Western Indonesia. So it seems that they really want to have a distinctive characteristic of distinctive picture by being a Muslim. So they're really proud of being a Muslim. And they also have a more influence from reformist or modernist Islam compared to NU. So there's still NU branches, but not as strong. Such as so the more influential groups there is Muhammadiyah, and also strong support for political Islam. We look at this one by looking at the election result in 2014 and 2019. In 2014, they supported Prabowo. 2019, they supported Jokowi, and we think it's because of Ma'ruf Amin. And 2024, they actually support for Prabowo. And all Islamic groups are supporting, promoting virtue and forbidding vice, which is Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar. But the discussion is, so there's no debate on that. The debate is more on whether they want to support caliphate, SJAD and JAS, or the use of violence, whether they will use violence or not. So that's the debate within the Islamic groups there. Okay, so in Malthanaer and Waldman concept of radical milieu, because we want to understand how terrorist groups emerge, they actually introduce 3 pathways in which terrorist groups emerge within radical milieu. And they said that one doesn't have to tick box all those 3 pathways, but what we think that Bima is particularly interesting is because they actually tick the 3 boxes, the 3 pathways of formation of pathways for formation of terrorist groups in Bima. So the first one is that terrorist groups emerge gradually from an already established radical milieu, and we look at the history of Bima, and we see Bima is actually have been around for a while. So to say, the first our first recorded track, or like when we see Bima men is involved, it's actually in Cikini bombing. It happened in Jakarta against our first President Soekarno, and it was part of anti-communist protests. But most people in those groups is actually from Bima. The second one, the Talangsari incident, happened during the New Order in Bandar Lampung, and there are few of them who are survived those incidents and then went back to Bima and become a very influential figure in Bima. And we also see some people involved in Ambon and Poso conflict. The two or one person who are very influential is actually Abrori. Abrori is JI alumnus, studied in Java in JI Pesantren, Jamaah Islamiyah Pesantren, and then he went to Ambon to be military trained, and then went back to Bima. And the other one is Uqbah. Uqbah is also JI alumnus, and then he went back to Bima, and both of them form a pesantren called Umar bin Khattab. This is the Umar bin Khattab pesantren. And aside from Umar bin Khattab pesantren, there's also one important figure. The name is Ustadz Alex or Ustadz Iskandar. He's the person, you can see that one. And Ustadz Iskandar is actually, the family is from Bima, his family from Bima, his father is from Bima, but he was born and raised in Jakarta, met Ustadz Aman Abdurrahman, and practically become the right-hand man of Ustadz Aman Abdurrahman. And in 2004, Ustadz Aman asked him to come back to Bima and to do proselytization or to dakwah and introduce the Islamic ideal of jihad. And this is when the second pathway of formation of terrorist groups happened or taken place. So there are many details here that I really encourage you to read the article to understand the details. But I just want to emphasize that that's actually two different groups here. The first one is Penatoy group led by Ustadz Alex, and the second one is Ubeka group, the Umar bin Khattab group led by Ustadz Abrori. So Penatoy located in the city, and Umar bin Khattab located in the region. So it's when Ustadz Iskandar came to Bima, initially he thought to a very short period in Umar bin Khattab, but then they have internal conflict, and then they go separate ways. And since then on, they grow their own disciples, their own students, expand their network there. But in 2009, after the establishment of Jamaah Ansarut Tauhid by Ustadz Abu Bakar Bashir, it was actually formed in 2008, but then it arrived in Bima in 2009. And because of this Jamaah Ansarut Tauhid, and Ustadz Aman Abdurrahman also decided to join Jamaah Ansarut Tauhid. That's why the reconciliation between these two groups happened. And since then, there's like a lot of exchange of ideas, of members, of resources, especially on the concept of jihad, which involve physical jihad that actually attacking people or attacking someone. And because this radicalization taken place at that time between the two groups, in 2011, there's an incident involving people from the Umar bin Khattab, which led to police raided the pesantren, the school, and then arrested Ustadz Abrori and closed down the pesantren. And since then, practically the only Ustadz Iskandar is like the leader of these groups, because there's no one as more charismatic and as more resourceful than he is. And in 2014, after the ISIS declaration, it caused JAT, the Jamaah Ansarut Tauhid, to split. One became Jamaah Ansarut Syariah, which is non-violent, and Jamaah Ansarut Daulah become pro-ISIS or the violent one. I hope this is not too complicated, just to give you a very short history of extremist groups in Bima. And from 2014 to 2020, there's many extremist activities which involve Bima men flew to Syria, which jihad at home, or targeting the police, joining MIT and other groups. Okay, so the third pathways of terrorist formation, the formation of terrorist groups in Bima is actually grievances of jihadist family. So because of this escalated extremist activities in Bima, therefore a lot of police actually go to Bima and arrested and also sometimes killed them, killed the jihadists. And this also, of course, bringing like grievances among their family, and many of them actually committed to prepare for the future generation. So this is involving the next generation of jihadists, and they also, even for the women, they also preparing themselves to be trained, physically trained. It doesn't mean that it's military trained, but at least they have a physical training at some point. So how about the interaction between the extremist groups and the radical milieu? So just focus on these two things. So when we look at Jamaah Ansarut Syariah, for example, they of course support for Jamaah Ansarut Daulah ideals, overall goal, even maybe not really on the their strategy. And sometimes these differences also involve not only on the organizational level, but also familial ties. Because what we've seen previously, they were under the same groups and then they go separate ways. So, and it's not only involving, ideals and ideology, but it involves family as well. And until later on, they haven't really make a public condemnation against terrorism or terrorist act. So they become really opportunist here. What we mean by opportunist is that to an extent, because they not supporting violence, they are tolerated by the state and society for being non-violent. So it's okay as long as you're not committing any terrorist act. It's okay if you have Islamic ideals to have a caliphate, for example. And on the other hand, their ideals and goals were being advocated by the extremist groups, right? And the other plus point that Jamaah Ansarut Syariah also received is actually that they become a point or the environment of transition for members from the violence group, from Jamaah Ansarut Daulah. This is actually the case of Ustadz Gunawan. So that one is Ustadz Gunawan, and he was formerly PE teacher at Umar bin Khattab Pesantren. So he was part of these groups. And then he also the one who trained the jihadists back in 2018. But exactly in 2018, I met him, and he was still in a very scary face, with very scary face. But it was the time when he has an encounter with the head of Muhammadiyah, which also the head of Interfaith Forum in Bima. So he asked this person from Muhammadiyah to help him out because of his wife's complication at birth. And because of those help, he started to rethink what he always think about the society. He told us that maybe they're not that bad after all, and maybe I need to expand my knowledge about this group. So after that, he started to join. Well, not really official, because they're within the same circles. So he started to introduce himself as part of Jamaah Ansarut Syariah, and now he's currently work closely with BNPT, the anti-terrorism body. So that one is the head of BNPT, and Densus 88, the counter-terrorist unit in the police, as a local religious counselor for the extremist community. He just received an award for that. So
received what, sorry?
An award.
Award.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one is the interaction between radical milieu and the wider social political environment, and this also includes the dynamics in the national level, actually. So, for example, the heightened religious polarization post 2017 gubernatorial election in Jakarta with the Ahok case, and in the 2019 election with the highly polarized election back in 2019, it also have a ripple effect in Bima. For example, that FUI, the Forum Umat Islam, also mobilized people to have their own version of 212 movement. So it seems like they also gear up or having this excitement to be part of these broader Islamic goals. But when the Islamist groups are being cracked down, for example, the 2021 disbandment of Forum, the Islamic Defender Front, they also try to distance themselves with the group. For example, just for example, the Jamaah Ansharut Syariah, when their pesantren listed within the extremist pesantren by BNPT, they completely criticize the government, saying that they're always being cooperated and all that. So they really are very strategic in putting themselves in this thin line between radicalism, extremist groups, radical and militant groups, and also they want to be accepted by the wider society as well. Okay, so the next one is the peace building and the radicalization in Bima. As you may know, we have two different approaches. This is by the government. The first one is hard approach. It includes the arrest, including killings of the jihadists, for example, closure of financiers, and access to violent extremist groups. But lately, we also see that there's increasing attempts or increasing efforts by the government to do the soft approach, which include maintain communication and personal relationships with former terrorist groups, when they were inside the jail or outside the jail. So they still trying to basically getting the heart and minds of these terrorist groups. And this is completely this works well for Ustadz Alex or Ustadz Iskandar, which was arrested in 2017. But in 2021 or 2021, he basically renounced his extremist views. And later on, after he was released and came back to Bima, he was part of this effort to de-radicalize extremist community in Bima. So if you see this photo, there's actually Ustadz Alex here, Ustadz Gunawan, and these are other Islamic groups in Bima, including Jamaah Ansharut Syariah. So this active role of Idensos by Densus and active role of FKUB lead to, this is part of the soft approach, and also apparently it's kind of successful to change the heart and mind of the extremists. And if you follow the issue of these violent extremist groups, lately we have this news about Jamaah Islamiyah being disbanded, basically by the leaders. It's also arguably part of this negotiation and also communication between police and also the leaders of Jamaah Islamiyah. Okay, so finally it's come to a close. So the conclusion, violent extremist groups in Bima are inseparable from the radical milieu. I hope this quite reflected in the presentation, that at least in their belief, they seems to share the same ideals, beliefs, and also goals with the extremist group, the violent extremist groups, but the boundary separating the two cannot always be drawn so clearly, except for the use of violent or non-violent means, as they also help the logistic and are tied within the family bonds. And the formation of the radical milieu in Bima preceded but also coincided with the formation of extremist groups, and we need to address the issues within the radical milieu as well. And then we see more peace building initiatives to de-escalate tension in Bima. So currently, I think Bima has been dropped by the government as part of the red zones of extremism. So arguably now it's no longer like a very not safety place for people in general. Not really it's still I haven't been there, but maybe it's still quite conducive enough for people to be there, and basically drop from the red zones, and not only from the government but from prominent members of the community. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for your intriguing presentation, Nadia, and we open the discussion for questions or comments or any suggestion by then. Okay, and then any other? Maybe three people. No, at the end. Yeah, you can introduce your name and your institution here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, I asked first because probably I cannot stay until the end. But yeah, thank you very much, Katie. I think it's very fascinating, and I regretted that I haven't read the article. But now I can read the article probably more quickly.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's very interesting. I'm trying to imagine, well, Bima, like you said, is a very small place. And I'm trying to get a sense, how much can you generalize from Bima to other places? Because yeah, it's a small place, very local, and probably I mean the people there, they know each other, including, like, for example, well, you said the radical milieu, and then Muhammadiyah and UFKUB. Probably it's I mean, yeah, I don't know whether they know each other, or, but yeah, I mean that situation. So not sure how how much can you generalize from this. But more specifically, my next question. So I see, well, you explained there are actually many ways people change the terrorism in. I mean, it's interesting, for example, the split from JAT to GAD and JAS.
Yeah.
I'm sure they use many arguments. I mean, like JS, why they want Sharia, they don't want Daulah.
Yeah.
Probably religious arguments as well. So that's one factor. But also, so religious arguments probably play a role. And then the example of Ustad Gunawan shows that personal relations, that can be decisive. And then the way governments handle them. What you mentioned, the soft approach and hard approach, and sometimes the hard approach even produce, in your term, probably the secondary milieu.
Yeah.
People are killed, and then the family. I mean, it's like producing the next generations of terrorists.
Yeah.
So there are these different factors, and yeah, I was wondering. It's probably, this question is not fair to you because I want you to
Okay.
give. But yeah, if you can say anything, I mean, like, which one is more more determinate or more influential as a factor? Yeah. So that's
To the split or to the
no. I mean, like this, the religious arguments, the personal relations, or probably they work in different situations. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. One by one or next? Okay.
Next,
Okay.
Okay, many thanks. I'm Abdi. I'm from here. Interestingly, from your presentation, there is no picture of women.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
And I remember 3 years ago, Atlantila also opened the West Forum by talking about Bima. And he underlined the important roles of women in constructing the face of Islamic Bima. So I wonder, I mean, like, how the role of the woman in this kind of, this soft approach, hard approach, and yeah, in order to radicalize or de-radicalize this kind of, I mean, yeah, phenomena, like either, yeah. And I see no woman there. Yeah.
Okay, the role of woman. Yeah.
okay, then next.
Okay. Hello, my name is Ayana from CRPS. I'm highly interested for your presentation. That's on my experience. I'm an assessor for the terrorist individuals for many Jabodetabek, and many times facing with them and doing assessments and intervention with them. So I'm really highly interested in this issue. So due to your presentations, I just want to know what the differences is about JAD or yes, in Bima with the others area. As you said before, that JAD in Bima they are being cooperative. Yeah, as far as my opinions before, as humans, they are being changed in the sometimes, yeah, okay. Sometimes they're being cooperative, but we don't know what their ideologies and what their actions in the future. Yeah. So I just want to know what the differences about the JAD in Bima and with the others. Maybe you can explore more about how the governments how the government approach to JAD Bima and Bima with the others area and how they monitoring of their movement.
Can I add a little bit to my?
Yeah,
I asked about how much you can generalize.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you like compare what happened in Bima and other places, I was interested with your question. Can you say that in general the government is successful compared, probably also to other countries?
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but
Okay.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
up to you
Okay.
whether you want to answer.
I'm not sure about the other countries. But maybe I think to just continue with the discussion about the comparison between what happened in Bima and what happened in other places. For example, for Jamaah Ansarut Syariah, to be like very particular, they're actually quite they said it themselves. This is from Ustad Gunawan actually, that he thinks that what happened in Bima is actually only like the periphery of what happened in Java. So they always just follow what Java says, basically. So they always say that we are only the front of the house of JI or of JI. So we just follow what happened in Java. So if you want to really target what the Jamaah Syariah, you should go to those in Solo, for example. So
Yeah, I know for the hard research. As you said before that GI is following for GI, but in fact, in the few days ago, that GI is constantly established their movement.
yeah.
How about that? And maybe it's so interesting.
Yeah.
More.
I'm not sure whether I can do promotion here, but I would suggest you to read IPAC report on that, because I think it's quite elaborate on how JI and the leaders of JI actually have been discussing about the possibility of disbandment for quite some times with the police and everything. And at least from people at IPAC, they quite believe that it's actually kind of genuine. Of course, there will be a lot of disagreement within JI, and maybe there will be splinter groups afterwards. But at least from those who are in the top, like Abu Rusdan and all those higher ups in JI, they seems to be very much supportive of that one, of the disbandment of JI, and this has been discussed and also supported by Parawijaya as well, back in 2000s, late 2000s. So yeah, I will really encourage you to read that report. But JIS and JI is also different thing, right? JI is led by the son of Abu Bakar Bashir, and they also have their own standing towards socio-political issues as well. And so far, they are being very cooperative with the government, and that's why they always want to prove themselves that they're non-violent and they are still under Pancasila, and maybe that's why you also see many Abu Bakar Bashir's statements supporting Pancasila, even though it's within his own interpretation of Pancasila. And also he also involved in the flag ceremony back last year, if I'm not mistaken. Last year, I'm not sure about this year, but last year and maybe the 2 years ago, he also involved in flag ceremony during the Independence Day. So this is like to show to the government and also to show to the society in general that they are really supportive of NKRI basically. So that's what I know of JI and JIS. And yeah, the government approach in Bima. I think we mentioned it in the article. If we say government can be huge infrastructure, but what we are discussing in the article is actually FKUB, the Interfaith Forum. So the head of Interfaith Forum is also the head of Islamic Department of Religious Affairs in Bima. So he's the one who always involved these Islamist groups, including those JIS or also even JAD. They also try to invite them in meetings and not basically try to embrace them and also listen to what their grievances against the government. But I don't see this kind of approach is practiced in other places. Maybe not in Poso, I'm not sure, but that's not what I heard in Poso, for example. Or in the national level in general, they always have this suspicion against JIS, for example, against the Jamaah Sharia. So I think they have a very different approach to that. I'm not sure whether the one in Bima, the government in Bima, are still doing that, still embracing all these groups up until now, but at least during our data collection, that's what they did. Mas Abdi on the picture of women. Yeah, actually, I need separate section for women, and I actually do research, separate research on women, because the woman is very interesting. On one way, they really have the agency to be part of the movement, to be involved, to do jihad in whatever they interpret. Even being the wife of jihadis, also part of jihad as well. But in a way, we also see, if we look at it a broader, a bit more in a helicopter view, we always know that they're being used by these men as well. So, for example, Umi Delima, for example, the wife of Santoso, the head of MIT. She's very strong head. She has all these ideas about Islamic caliphacy. She still believes about those things, and she believes that the jihad is, the physical jihad that we always know. But they have a very limited access to do that, right? Because of this patriarchal, these Islamist group have a very patriarchal, conservative views of women. So women are mostly involved in raising kids, financing, sometimes financing as well, taking care of those the wife or the family of jihadis who left because of they went to Syria, for example, or to other place, or they're killed by the police. So they do have these charity groups called Umanami, and I think the leader is actually women. They also have Quranic house to educate the children about their ideas. So those on the radicalization part, but we also see some women involved in the radicalization part. So there's one ustazah. So she's graduated from Libya, and she's the wife of one of former terrorist inmates, and she's the one who lead all this pengajian, all this majelis taklim, what do you call it, religious study about to have a more moderate understanding about jihad. So when her husband decided to renounce extremism, she was so relieved and she was so happy because that's what she always knows. So she also very highly knowledgeable because of course she's graduated from Libya. So that's one thing under the radicalization part. So we cannot really see women in a very simple way. It's very complex, and they also always have their own agency to some extent. And I think I will come to Pak Zain's question on how much you can generalize these groups. So the interesting point of Bima is actually because they have the neighborhood called Penakoi. It's like the entire neighborhood which is become like the center for radicalization, center for extremist activities. To an extent, people there are quite afraid to go to this neighborhood. But so a lot of people in there know each other, marrying each other, becoming huge family, and then they also the one who are sent to other places, including Bima, Lampung, Banten, Poso. So maybe if you ask me about generalization, this is that like looking at to what extent they mobilize and to what extent they have influence in these other groups. For example, there's one leader in MIT, the Eastern Mujahid Indonesia, is actually also from Bima, and he's arguably even more influential than the then leader Ali Kalora, for example. So it really depends on the each cases, I would say, and the determinants for the determinant factor for people to change to become a terrorist. Yeah, it's also very case by case basis, I think. If you're talking about JAT split to JIS and JID, for example, of course, religious argument play a part, but there's also the role of Uqbah, the one who found Umar bin Khattab Pesantren. He's actually the one who do the campaign against ISIS at the time. So he was being so someone from the police and also those who don't like ISIS strategy try to convince Uqbah, and then Uqbah tried to convince many other people to move to hijrah from JAD or the tendency towards JAD to become JIS. So there's also the role of influential figure in this split, for example.
Okay.
Am I answering?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. And I want to add the question of Mas Ati about the woman against terrorism has been written by our colleagues, by Erin Gayatri. You can see her sentence. Okay, and thank you. And we continue to our second part of our discussion, our question. Maybe any other questions? Okay, one there. Fine. Okay, Mike, Mars, and Pak Reza. Okay.
Pak Reza.
Monica.
Let me introduce myself first. Sorry, beforehand, I got so late because I just woke up. My name is Stefan. I'm from Physical GM, Department of Public Policy and Management.
Okay.
My question is just something that interests me, but apologies beforehand if it has been answered by the presentation that I didn't come to see a lot of it. Since Bima has been dropped its status from being a hotspot of terrorism into somewhat safe, and since so there, if one could say that, well, I assume so that there is a lot of people who are, let's say, conservative there. Religiously conservative in the region, and with Bima being such a small region, so has there been like a case of where people who are just being conservative were being allegedly or just wrongfully incarcerated just for being conservative? And because in the end of the government and politics, right, I am a non-Muslim, so I don't, sometimes we can't really differentiate between one who is being just conservative and one being radicalized. And then also because like from the government standpoint, point of view, my field, we need a distinct and clear like categories to differentiate the two. So we need to, so the SLB or like the frontliners could actually do their jobs well and still retaining human rights. And then, if so, assuming that there has been the case, such cases exist, how much did it affect in radicalization of the people itself? Because it means like, so yes, like, for example, him being, so let's say A, he was imprisoned, wrongfully imprisoned, and then, but he has no connection to the movement itself. And then, since the news, and then the news broke out to the community, and then it became news for everyone, and then everyone just got, okay, the government, if the government can take one people, one guy, then everyone can be, potentially be taken away by the government for our causes. So, yeah, so that's my question.
Okay, next, so, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike from ICRS. I've not specifically researched Bima, but I did research on Muslim migrants, and they say many of them being from Bima. So it was really fascinating to hear the stories. There's a mix of pride in Bima, and it's many told me how strict Islam was, in Bima, and they would say, "Oh, Aceh is number 1, we're number 2," and then the Bugis are number 3. And it was really interesting to hear their stories of growing up in Bima and then moving to Bima or to Timor, and for the first time in their lives, they're meeting Christians or Catholics or people of other faiths, because Bima is 99.9% Muslim, and so there are very few opportunities to engage other faiths. Really, there are some across the bay. Across from Kota Bima, there are some Christian communities, but very small. One thing that we've learned in our work with ICRS over the last year is that we were speaking with Balai Diklat or Balai something about some Kemenang office in Bali, and they were talking. They said, we've got 5 hotspots of terrorism in Bima today, and then we were also speaking with FKOB and Makassar, and they said, when we find terrorism or terrorists in Makassar, it's migrants from Bima. And so with those two things, in terms of kind of a soft approach, what soft approaches have you seen outside of, leadership and FKOB? Are there any government or civic programs to bring people of different faiths together? Any opportunities for young people in Bima, for instance, to go to Labuan Bajo or to Bali, on trips where they can actually engage with other faiths to perhaps de-radicalize or desensitize people to other faiths? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, my name is Reza from CRCS. So I will just read my question. Following the disbanding of JI, there is a certain degree of concern among the BNPT actors about the possibilities of changing strategies among extremist groups. So, question: do you see this phenomenon being possibly manifested in your case?
Okay, thank you. Is that all? Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll start with Zafan's question.
Stefan.
Stefan. Okay, maybe that's the. Okay. So, Stefan's question about the religious conservative, and maybe this is not only this one, but also with Mike's question as well. When we are talking about conservatism, it really have a very broad definition, right? And to what extent we want to move the spectrum is a bit questionable. So when we are talking about conservatism here, it can be to the extent that it's violent to non-violent, and they're still having very much idea of extremist or violent conservative ideology, and to the extent that they're pro-pluralist movement, for example, which is quite hard to push them to that side, right? So yeah, on your question, so far, I because maybe I also only look at the cases under violent extremism or terrorism. I haven't seen like a wrongfully incarceration, but I would say there's like so there's cases. I would say it's also cases of human rights issues as well. So sometimes there are so those who are identified as terrorists, they are actually terrorist groups, a part of the terrorist groups, and this is also being confirmed by my with my interview with Ustad Gunawan, and also that's actually one of the reasons why he decided to convert, because he knows when Densus come to Bima and then incarcerated people, arrest people, or when they shot those jihadis, they're actually part of the jihadist group, so they're not wrongfully incarcerated. But I don't say that there's no human rights abuses there, especially back in 2014, before the 2018 new law on terrorism. There's many issues in which stories. I don't know what the fact of this, but there's stories of people being beaten up, and then sometimes the body came without organs, for example, and of course it make a lot of women, and especially the wives and the families, are very sad, and that's actually the reason why in this article I also argue about the possibility of secondary milieu, which is the next generation of extremist groups from the children of these jihadists. So yeah, I think I hope that answers the question. And the second one is Mike's question on civic activities. Yeah, I don't think that I've seen many efforts to do that. Sometimes if there's some attempts from, for example, from NU or other civil society organization, they don't really look at this extremist community because they don't have access to them, right? So they try to promote these ideas of pluralism to the wider community, but not really focusing on these extremist groups. And this is the different, I think this is when the different definition of changing them into something plays really huge role, because the government side, the government concern is actually to move their strategy from, maybe it's not only government, but those who work on violent extremism, dealing with these extremist groups. The main goal is to shift their strategy from violent to non-violent. It is up to them to still have the extremist belief or ideals, as long as they don't engage in violent means. It's okay, because it's really hard to shift them. It's like the other big project to shift them to become a pluralist. I think that's the issue here. Yeah, the next one is Reza's question on changing strategies of extremist activities. Well, we don't know, right? we haven't really interviewed anyone from like potential future leader of GI, for example. There's always a possibility. I don't want to like really close any opportunity to that, but I think GI also have changed their strategy several times already, from what we've seen previously by do bombing and do a lot of those things, and having they also prepare to have this military armed groups. But from what I heard and I read from reports, those armed groups, it's not to attack the Indonesian government, but it's to help those in other countries. So basically helping sending people to Syria, for example, to like an additional armed groups from Indonesia. It's like a contribution to the wider ummah, to the wider Islamic community. So that's what I heard. Well, we cannot really sure whether it's genuine or not, but so far I think we need to still need to follow what they're saying after this, or still we just basically don't let our guard down. But still open to what I mean, like when they're saying that they want to embrace NKRI, they want to change their strategy. We also need to appreciate that and then also welcome them. I think that's the basic thing that I want to.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Then-
we come to our end, our last session of this discussion. Maybe one last question or
Habis.
one more.
Mulai waktu ini.
Okay.
Saya boleh tanya.
Okay. Then.
Ya. Tapi waktunya sampai sekarang.
Okay.
2020. Oh.
Okay. Yes, we can be wait.
Ya, tapi saya mau pamit nanti. No, but I was I mean what you said answering Reza reminded me of one of your slides.
Yeah.
You mentioned I think in 1957 or something. I mean during the time of Sukarno.
Oh, 57.
57.
Yeah.
So at that time it was because of the perceived communist policy of Sukarno.
The communist tendency, the pro-communist tendency.
Yeah. And then after that, I forgot. I'm sorry, but the years after that, they appeared again in during the time of Suharto.
Yeah.
Right. And then the third one.
After reformasi. During yeah.
Yeah.
2000.
So yeah, I was thinking. I mean, probably it's always there.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, part of the issues, I mean, like they're responding to external, policy or
Yeah.
whatever. Once it was about communism, next probably perceived anti-Islam or whatever. So, yeah, maybe, I mean, if we speak about external situation,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, for example,
Yeah.
If there's a government, oppressive authoritarian government come up again, and then I don't know what they do, but I mean that kind of thing. It's what may trigger, right? So
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to
Yeah.
just I don't want to end it with like Indonesia is very safe now. We don't
Yeah,
have any
yeah.
threat and all that. Of course, it's not really. It's not what
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm.
It's more like I think we see some good intention.
Yeah.
Good intention from them. Whereas maybe someday when we have an authoritarian government, like very repressive towards Islamist groups, of course we may see that one
Yeah.
raise up again, or maybe there's something at the global level that can trigger their activism. For now,
Yeah.
they don't see any.
Yeah.
We actually don't see any.
But what can you say? Again, maybe this is a question unfair. What remains there?
Wow.
I mean, it changed. I mean, in terms of what is latent there? Do you say? Would you call it ideology or what?
Yeah, of course, ideology.
Ideology.
But we cannot really kill ideology,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So
That's the issue.
yeah.
It's still there.
Two things. Feel free to leave. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
The con is going to be at our office in 5 minutes. One thing I think, coming again from my research of migrants is, they love Bima. They're proud of Bima, but they struggled in Bima. Struggled with overpopulation, lack of employment. A lot of
Yeah.
people that were well educated in Java came back to Bima and there's no jobs.
So, yeah.
And so competition and corruption among KNS was really hard.
Yeah.
And so, I wonder how much socioeconomic factors play into the radicalization. Now, that's just a statement. Now, my real question is, we have students, particularly one student here, very interested in extremism, and trying to get access to extremist groups.
Okay.
And of course, that's a difficult way in.
Yeah.
what advice could you give in terms of you and your research partner access to these groups? And or did you just talk to de-radicalized individuals?
Okay, yeah. So I think the first step is go to the radicalized individuals, and there are many foundations of former terrorist inmates, for example. I think in every city now, like in Jakarta, we have one. In Bima, we also have like people like Ustadz Gunawan, for example. He was never been incarcerated or arrested, but he was the one who really helped me to link with other terrorist inmates, former terrorist inmates, even those who are not really, not even one being incarcerated by the government. So yeah, I think that's one step to access these groups, and there've been many of them already. So I really encourage you to access them.
Thank you, Bima. I'm really agree that research might get one of factors of person being radical is economic. Yeah, because my main the people terrorists it is one of factors they become terrorists. So I want to ask you that GAD in Bima, they are very cooperative, as you said before, and they are collaborate with them building. But in fact, when I face and in many terrorists, in our program for the radicalization, we have many phases of problems. Yeah, one of our problem is we are facing with their groups. Yeah, they the terrorists get the threats from the groups. If they are declared or inbred the NKRI, they will kill the people, the family. And yeah, it's so complicated problems we have to solve together. And maybe you can share about the this kind of group of GAD and Bima, how to solve this, because one of the group who give the threat is it. But I not say it is GAD from Bima, but because our the people of the terrorists who we held it. It's not only Bima but entire Indonesia.
Yeah, I also see similar cases happen in other contexts as well, not only in Bima, about people are being threatened by the community that they will. I never hear anyone saying that they will kill the family, but they will ostracize the family and basically drop all the assistance to the family. So there's one case in which the husband renounced extremism in the prison, and then the family, when they're out, the family, the wife and 2 children are always being getting assistance, financial means, and also house basically. Then after the renouncement, they're basically shoot them. What do you call it? Like basically ask them to leave the facility, and that's when this former terrorist foundation, the foundation of former terrorist inmates, many of them are supported by Densus, actually by Idensos, the police unit for terrorism. So they got some money from them. They also develop their own infrastructure, such as houses, and also give them some support, give them some trainings for to get a job, or maybe to just become like a small entrepreneur, maybe like making cookies or something like that. It's very stereotypical woman, but yeah, but at least there's something that this Idensos trying to do, or this foundation of their former terrorist inmates trying to do. Of course, not everyone receives such support. I interviewed a lot of former terrorist inmates, female terrorist inmates, who doesn't get anything basically. So all this attention from the government are located for the male terrorist inmates. whereas the woman basically doesn't get anything. So yeah, so if you want to try to detach themselves from the support of these groups, you need to have other source of support that can provide them with daily things, daily needs, right? So that's one thing, and I haven't seen any cases in which they're being killed by that because of that. I just seen in some cases in which they're being ostracized, they're being cut by the community, which is totally fine if you have your own support from other means, right? So that's maybe one thing that you can try to do. I'm not sure whether it's helped, but yeah, just an idea. Yeah.
Representation is interesting, and apparently the discussion of the representation is more.
Yeah, I hope it helps.
Any other questions? We still have about 10 minutes.
Maybe anyone from the first year? I want to hear something from first year. Oh, you're first year? Okay.
Okay, if good enough for today. So we have now come to the end of our presentation,
Yeah, okay.
and on behalf of CRSS and ICRS, I would like to express our gratitude for your enlightened presentation and insightful contribution to our discussion about extremism, especially in Bima. And we have some buah tangan.
Oh, thank you.
And I also want to express thank for you all of your participation, of your engagement, questions, and your thoughtful comments have enriched this discussion. And please stay tuned for our upcoming Wednesday forums about climate change. Yeah.
That's for all.
We move from extremism to file negative feedback, crash crop, or socio-religious life and climate change in outland Java. It's quite long research from 1815 to 2018. From 1850 sampai 2010. Okay. By who just and sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, make you waiting.
Standing here for like 2 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you for sharing with us today. We very much appreciate it, and we pray for the rest of your time as a PhD candidate. We hope you can finish soon and continue to contribute to academia as well as you have already. And so this is a copy of your poster for today, done by Mr. Abdi back there. Yeah. For you, we'll take a picture as we need to do. And then also we have some books for you, and then some, I don't know. You know, what you need to do is probably take everything out of the box, throw the box away,
Oh.
and then put everything in the bag, and you can travel back to. You going back to upstairs?
Jakarta.
Oh, back. Well, again, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to the next time we come.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.